Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot, and today we're going to do a bit of VFR flying. We're going to take the JustFlight Piper Arrow PA28R Arrow 3 for a flight from here in Bembridge up to Blackbushe. The reason we're doing this is because this Arrow has had a fairly major update recently. We've got a few improvements we'll talk about along the way. Plus, we've got this fantastic livery by Pade, which is our 320 Sim Pilot Aviation Academy livery. And we've also got the new JustFlight Blackbushe Airport to check out when we get up there. I do enjoy a bit of VFR flying. It's not something I get to do much, so I'm looking forward to giving this a go in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We'll also, as I said, look at some of the improvements to the Arrow. The reason we are starting in Bembridge here in the Isle of Wight is because this is where my last general aviation group flight ended up after we flew around the south of the UK. Obviously, we've all parked up here with our chocks and tie downs in, so very shortly we'll get started. Before we do, let's just take a quick look at the exterior model. If I can get it to focus, there we go. So there have been some changes to the texturing in this recent update to the Arrow, and as you can see, just looking fantastic all along the wings. The texturing on this was already excellent, and it's been improved, I'd say, I don't want to say subtly, but it has been improved from what was already a very high state. You're going to notice lots of different marks and fingerprints all over it. You'll see it on the windscreen there. You can see the, or windshield, I should say. You should see the fingerprint marks and things like that. Over years of being a club aircraft, it suits quite nicely our Aviation Academy sort of style. It's clearly been a well-flown and well-loved aeroplane, this one. If you look around the engine intake, you can see bits of dirt from behind the propeller, and as we come down the side, you'll see that the screws that have been undone many times have started to get wear around them, and the handle on the overhead, if I can focus on it, there we go, well used and becoming grubby. I am using a custom livery, of course, so I'm not sure quite how that would compare with the liveries they include, but yeah, really looking excellent. So let's jump in and get started. In the cockpit now, and of course we have lots of checks to do. I'm just going to clear the yoke. They have changed the way the textures are loaded in the cockpit, so it should give you a better resolution even if your settings in Microsoft Flight Simulator are lowered. And that's what they are hoping to achieve with that, I believe. We've got our iPad, which is now a bit more functional. Some of the winds were a bit wrong before, so a few bug fixes. It's warning us we need priming and fuel flow to get that engine up and running. We can close up our doors, get rid of the tie downs and chocks. I can also click on the door. Make sure that you do this in the right order. There we go, close. I need to latch here, and I need to make sure it's latched up here, otherwise it doesn't sit closed. There we go. So that is all in, and the baggage door needs to be closed. I should have done that already. And then we're going to jump over to the cockpit. So the starting procedure in the Arrow is relatively straightforward, although you do have to follow it quite carefully. So there's lots of things we need to do. We need to make sure our fuel flow selector is on, which it is. It's on the left tank at the moment. We're going to make sure, obviously, that our parking brake is set and plenty of other things. But I'm going to cut forward and just go for the engine start, as you can imagine. Cheating as ever on my channel. So to start the engine, we are going to make sure the circuit breakers are all in. They do impact systems, you'll see, so you do want those to be in. Then we're going to move the propeller lever fully forward. Advance the throttle to about a quarter open. Confirm that alternate air is closed, which it is. It's not a carb heat, remember, this is a fuel injected engine, I believe. And now we're going to switch on the battery master. Now that is a little hard to do with the propeller lever up there, so I'm just going to wind that back. There we go. And yeah, she comes to life. We want the navigation rotating beacon light to come on. People around us now will know that we're about to start the airplane. Is the navigation light somewhere different? No, I think that's it. I don't want to stay here for too long running down that battery. Or maybe not. I'll have to find those in a second. And now we can switch on the fuel pump and prime the engine. So this is quite a fun way of doing it. So fuel pump comes on. Mixture comes up, and what I'm looking for is fuel pressure, then there's fuel flow. Leave it there for a couple of seconds, and now I'm going to bring it back to idle cutoff, which gets rid of that. So that should have put some fuel to sort of prime the system. Now you're going to check the area is clear all around you, which it looks like it is. By the way, there's those handprints I was talking about and fingerprints. Some people will not like that, I'm sure. You can shout out this little window to clear the prop, and now, if you have enough hands and mouse pointers, what you can do is you can bring this to start and the mixture up. Now, I don't have enough hands to do that, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to put that there. it's not warning us about the prime anymore, so let's give it a go. And there it goes. See, as long as you follow that procedure, it does work. I've done it wrong plenty of times. So when that, in theory, what we should have done is put that to start. When it fires up, bring that mixture up. But there we go. Now we're on. Let's get that alternator on, because of course the alternator is what gives the electrics power. It's the alternator from the engine. What we're doing here is using the battery still. So on comes the alternator, and you'll notice the alternator amps improve. So yeah, it's all running in the background. Right, engine started. So have we got oil pressure? We have. Temperature might come up later. We've got fuel pressure. We want to make sure that the starter warning light is out. We've got no warning lights up here. The reason the starter warning light would be a problem is if we would have the starter still engaged while the engine's running, which would not be a good thing. But there we go. We want to sit at 1400 to 1500 RPM, so I'll just adjust that. We've got gyro suction. So on these piston airplanes, they use suction from the engine to spin around these gyroscopes, which we're going to use for our direction indicator, or HSI in this airplane. Quite a fancy airplane, really. And now we can start turning on some of the electronics. So let's get our radio volumes up. Actually, no, we don't want that volume up. Got our GPS running, got a bit of a route loaded in, Bembridge to Odium that is, but after Odium, you'll see if I go to flight plan, we're going to Blackbushe. We're going to take a bit of a funny route though, I'll show you as we go, just to avoid the airspace around us. There's lots of airspace as we head up towards London. We'll get our transponder on. Quick note at this point, there's been another fix in this update, so this propeller animation's been improved now. I think before it had an effect where it might flicker around the middle, of something that I'd noticed happening a few times, so it looks much smoother now, gives a more complete feel, and then when you're sitting in the flight deck you don't get that sort of distracting flicker effect out the front. Nice to see that my little open window is actually open on the outside model as well. That's always good, although I might need to hold on to that control column a little bit better than that. Right, so our ADF can be on. Power on the this DME equipment, which is always very nice to have. As I said, quite a fancy airplane we're sitting in today. You can change the fit, of course, over here if you want to change your GPS around, but we're going to go with the 530 today. We'll get the altimeter set up, get some of that backlighting on. I know you don't need it in the daylight at all, but I think it does help for the videos. And we're going to head out to the runway and get going. So what's our route for today? I can show you either on the GPS, but I think what I'll do is bring up the VFR chart. We're going to head out and you can see the airspace around us. There's lots of airspace, so we need to head over here, and then we are going to fly over a little bird sanctuary, but we'll be well above it, don't worry. As we head up towards Odium, we're going to have to go through this, which is a military air traffic zone and mats, so we need to scoot around the edge of that. We don't really want to go straight through the overhead of the airport. And then Blackbushe is up here. Lots of airspace for Farnborough, a big international airport here. So we are going to, I'm going to come round the edge of this mat and then into Blackbushe that way, and we'll go and have a look at what it's all about. VFR flying so different to what I'm used to, so any of you who do it in real life will probably see plenty of errors. Let's get that closed. It does reduce the sound a bit, which is a nice effect, and taxi out. So as we taxi out here, we have a few checks we need to do. I do enjoy taxiing VFR airplanes. It is good fun as they sort of bounce around on the ground, the anticipation of a fun flight upcoming. Let's get ourselves over here, point us roughly into wind, and we'll just get the airplane set up. You would do your power checks and so on at some point now. Back in the flight deck though, we've checked all our instruments as we were taxiing out. Don't want to sit at pure idle. We can rev up to 2000 RPM, I think that's what they use for the power checks. And then you can do things like check your magnetos, which you'll notice the RPM drop, and then back to both. And we're going to leave it at idle. As I said, loads of things I'm doing wrong there, I'm sure. Set the flaps to 1 notch for our takeoff today. A bit more while we're sitting in idle. And we've got a nice oil temperature. In terms of navigating, we are going to take off and basically fly VFR. We're going to head over to the east of the tower that we used in Portsmouth for our VFR flight, and then we're going to head up towards Odium. We select the push this to sort of nav, there we go, and then 11475. So many things to get used to. Swap that over and in. Good stuff. So there's the Golf Whiskey Charlie. That will be off to our right. So I'm going to take off and head towards it before making a left turn and you can see that on my map up here. Takeoff, we're going towards Goodwood, but before, EGHR, but before we get there we'll turn left, and then we can rejoin effectively our GPS route up towards Odium. Right, let's get underway. Before we enter the runway then, fuel pump on for takeoff, landing light on, anti-collision light on, get that pitot heat on as well. Maybe that's the nav light. There we go, got the nav lights on. Found it. Yeah, you can exercise the propeller as well, so if I run this propeller back, you'll notice the RPM taking a big drop, which is what you'd expect, just exercising that mechanism in there. Something we should have done already that's quite special to this airplane is this automatic gear switch. If I move that to the right place, that we did have a little amber warning light here, but we've got rid of that warning light. So now if the power is back too much and the speed is too low, the airplane will drop the landing gear for us. So yeah, it's like a backup system. We also get the gear warning horn if we aren't in the right place. Let's bring our heading bug around. Again, not really the purpose of today to be flying too much on the instruments, but yeah, we have a heading bug, so let's use it. So climbing straight ahead, and then we will head over to Goodwood. I can actually probably pick up Goodwood already on the ground. Yeah, it's off, sort of 90 degrees off to the left. So I'm going to set that there, and we'll head over and meet that course. Right, let's go. So, power on, brakes released, and away we go. Those of you who came along on my group flight will know how powerful this airplane is. It seems to have no problem outpacing most other general aviation. The Cirrus was the only airplane that could really keep up. 65 knots, get ourselves up and into the air. Positive climb, get that gear up. No problem. Fantastic sounds out of this airplane as well. Really nice. Get it trimmed. And away we go. Probably get a bit more of a climb out of it even than that. Glorious. I do love giving general aviation a go in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's just, yeah, a really, really special piece of fun that we get to enjoy. Right, out over to the sea. And we can go and pick up our radial towards Goodwoods. Let's lower the nose and accelerate up. So flaps are coming in. So we can climb at sort of 90 knots, but I think we'll have no trouble doing more than that. I'm going to go up to about 2,000 feet for this flight today because there's a lot of airspace we're heading towards. Over there we can see Portsmouth and the Spinnaker Tower that we flew past on our last live group flight. Through 1,000 feet, so the fuel pump can come off, the landing light can come off. We'll reduce the RPM once we get going into our sort of cruise phase. So now we are, as you can see, tracking towards the Goodwood VOR. Now in real life there'd be so many radios you'd be contacting. You'd need to talk to Goodwood if you were going to fly through their air traffic zone. Here we go, here's 2,000 feet then. So attitude. Lower the nose until we're level. Now bring the power back and trim. Now for convenience, this airplane does have an autopilot that is realistic, but they also included an altitude hold. If I click there, it should be enabled, and we are in heading, so I'm going to put heading mode on. But before I do that, I should probably bring the heading bug around in front of us. There you go, there's a lesson for you guys. Let's bring it back round, pointing towards Goodwood. So, I want about 23 inches and 2200 RPM. So I've got my 23 inches, but I need to sort out the RPM. I'm just going to move that up out the way, bring back the RPM, there we go. Maybe a bit more. I should probably assign the RPM to different axes, that would help me out. 2200 RPM, 23 inches, let's see what that does for us on the speed. Okay, we're up at 2,200 feet. That should be absolutely fine. The airspace is above us at the moment. Is what you'd definitely be hoping at this point. Yeah, we have no controlled airspace. It's actually quite an uncontrolled area. So what I'm going to do is make a left turn now. We no longer want to go to Goodwood. I'm going to go up, and this is where there's a bird sanctuary. Area is only up to 500 feet. So I'm going to come left now. What I can do is press CDI, and this course bar will change that GPS track. You'll see it's gone off to the left. So now this course bar wants me to be on that magenta line that I've got, so I can slowly head my way over towards it. But you've got to be careful with that because I've got the wrong track. You know, my actual course itself is all set wrong. So I need to find out what my direct track is. It's actually 013. So if I set this to 013, now I'm effectively intercepting that as a VOR radial, and that'll get us over to our magenta line that we put into our GPS earlier. Great stuff. So we've got our squawk on, and yeah, we've got our RPM back, running on both magnetos. We've got to change the fuel tanks every now and then. It's a very simple system. I've actually got it set to automatic fuel selector on the iPad, I believe, which does make your life a bit easier. Auto fuel selector, there we go, which will swap it around for us. We have HSI enabled, which is what's giving us this course bar here. Quite a nice piece of equipment to have, certainly. And there we go, even a little rainbow out in front as we start our flight. Lovely. There's the Portsmouth and the Spinnaker Tower that, as I said, we flew past, and as we leave the Isle of Wight behind us over there. You can see I've actually brought the power back just to enjoy the flight a little bit. It's actually a really short flight if you just get on it. As you can see, 17 minutes it's always going to be to get up to Odium. I've got the power back at 20 inches, 2200 RPM, working out nicely. So as you probably saw, there were fingerprints on this window earlier. You can't see them now because of the way the light is. Look at that rainbow. This is where Microsoft Flight Simulator is just, it's just remarkable. This is a VFR experience. This is default scenery, just using the latest UK update. There's some rain, and this is what rain looks like in the flight. Sometimes this rain doesn't reach the ground, but this time it is. But you're getting that rainbow effect. Just absolutely lovely. It's great to see. So we're going to cruise along at 2,200 feet. That keeps us safe for now. It's also we're going to stay below airspace coming down on top of us. Soon it'll be down at 4.5. At some point we'd have to speak to Odium, because Odium has their military air traffic zone up in front of us, as you can see around here, and we can't fly, well, we can actually fly around this area, I believe, without talking to them, but in real life you would definitely talk to them and get information. We can't fly through the overhead like this unless we were well above it, which is not going to be possible in London, because above that airspace would be, well, actually it may be possible, but there's going to be the London TMA and so on above you there as well if you're not careful. Lots and lots of things to think about. As I said, Farnborough here, you've got Fair Oaks Airport here, Heathrow Airport here, so this is a really busy part of the world to be flying VFR, and you've got to really have your plan and wits about you. As you can see, what's happening now is the GPS is coming in line. It is possible, I believe, if we set this to nav, to get it to intercept that GPS line for us. Let's see what happens. Instead of using heading. As I said, this course bar is, we're not tracking a radial now towards anywhere, we are just following this pink line, so you've got to know that you're safe for your airspace. Anyway, 14 minutes now to go to Odium. Some other fixes that have been added in this recent update: the VR has been improved, the idle on the ground, you may have noticed now, it's about just over 500 RPM, which I think is a change, and icing has been added in. So there should be some icing effects, which we'll try and explore later. I didn't think the weather would be so nice. I was going to do that in flight, but it's just lovely with this spring showers around, getting the rainbows. Just fantastic. We're heading up to an airport called Blackbushe Airport. This is, as I said, released recently by JustFlight, who've kindly sent it over, along with the arrow, so we can go and take a look at it and see what's going on at Blackbushe. Not an airport I knew much about. It's got a surprisingly good tarmac runway. It's been around for a long time, from basically the Second World War, like a lot of airfields in the UK, as you probably gathered there. You can see more fingerprints down here. It's notable for a few things. It's obviously in a very busy part of the UK's airspace. It was obviously at one point RAF, as we said, and it used Mosquitoes and Spitfires in the war, which is always an amazing thing to think about. It became obviously general aviation after that. It's got a big car auction site on it, so a huge car auction sort of warehouse and a massive great car park. It makes it look like a sort of Heathrow International style setup, because it has such a huge car park. You'd think there's lots of people there on holiday. Oh no, that's curious. Where is it turning us now? Maybe that's it intercepting that GPS line. I'm not entirely sure whether I'm using whether it's, well, it must be following the GPS, because it can't be tracking towards Goodwood, but there we go. So Blackbushe, over the years, it's hosted many things. It hosted the Queen's helicopter for 11 years. It became General Aviation in 1962, and it was owned by that car auction company I was telling you about. But now it, I believe, has been changed over. It's now private investors. Yeah, so it's a growing, busy aviation airport. It's very nice. We're going to go over. We're going to join the circuits and have a look at some of that scenery when we get on the grounds. They use quite a low circuit height in the day, 800 feet, but the airfield has an elevation of 340 feet, so we're going to have to be at 1150 feet roughly when we do our circuits. This is part of flying in the UK, is just learning all the different details about the airports that you're going to. It does have an NEB on the airfield, so we can tune that up, which is frequency 328, and has a DME 116.2, so let's get those ready for us. Now, as I did say, we would have to do all sorts of communicating before we got to Odium air traffic zone. Where are we now? I've lost us. There we are. But still, this arrow, you can see you can do some really quick VFR. It's nice having that autopilot. I'm going to have to say this, it is easier in real life to fly an airplane straight and level and in trim than it is in a simulator. It just is. Also, your focus on flying is easier to keep because you're not having to bring up different windows and screens around you. There we go. It's doing a relatively nice job of tracking on our GPS line. I believe that's what it's doing. So yeah, let's tune in that DME. So DME 116.2, which I'm going to put up here. There we go. I'm still working out the avionics here. So I've put DME into nav 2 up here. And then that didn't work for me, so if I put it to nav 1 and then have DME 1162 tuned up here, we don't need the Goodwood VOR anymore. And you can see it's the Bravo Lima Charlie Blackbushe, but it doesn't have a radial, it is just a DME, and you can see our distance 16.0 on there. We can also tune the NDB, as we said, which is the Bravo Lima Kilo, frequency 328, so let's get that tuned over here. If I can remember how. There we go. 3, 2, 8, and hopefully my RMI will point straight towards it, which looks pretty reasonable over here. You can actually change your ADF heading to match, so let's get that lined up. It's like a bit of a direction indicator on the 010 with our heading, and you match that to your compass, which does seem to have all the errors. You can see it's spinning around there as you turn, which is what the real magnetic compasses do. You need to be straight and level when you want to update your HSI and so on. Lovely stuff. I do like the fact this left-hand grip is all worn out, as it would be in the real aeroplane. Still cruising along there, and we've got a bit more RPM, and we should have a bit less manifold pressure, but keeping a steady 100 knots. That seems to be working out for us, giving us a nice cruise time. Winds are slightly southerly today, so we can see we have a bit of a tailwind heading north. Now, I don't want to go through the Odium overhead, so I'm going to go back into heading mode, and then bring the aeroplane left, and we're going to go round. I'm going to go past EGHL. Let's see if I can figure out which airport that is. So many little airports and things around here. It's really remarkable. I think this is Lasham, which is a gliding site. So we also don't want to carve straight through their overhead, so we'll come south of them as well. And this is what flying around in the UK is like, certainly the South UK. So we're going to head west for a bit and scoot round. There it is. We can see it up ahead. VFR, I must remember to look out. I'm an IFR pilot, so VFR, visual flight rules, IFR, instrument flight rules. Airliners operate on instrument flight rules. By that I mean we fly airways, we fly radials. We don't need to navigate using the ground. We also don't need to keep visual contact with the ground, of course. PA-28, however, on a flight like this, we do. We're not allowed to head off and fly into some clouds. Obviously, the airplane's not certified for icing, but it's our responsibility to be able to navigate visually. That is why you need to have a good idea of your airspace. You'll have good VFR charts, which I'm not showing you at the moment. This is not a very good VFR charts that they give you. It is a bit of a VFR map. It gives you some clues of rivers and some of the major roads. Does it have, for example, the M25? Yeah, okay, it does have the roads in it, so it's not too bad actually. But yeah, it's something. What's GPS tracking? There we go. If we do line map, that gives you a bit of. I think that would give you a bit of context. Let's just zoom it out. Isoline map. There we go. Yeah, so it's showing us the elevation changes. So big features that people use flying VFR. Obviously, airfields are one. So that Lasham was incredibly obvious when we pointed at it. There it is over there. That they make big visual cues. The UK is made up of lots of fields, but something that do carve through fields is railways. So if we see a railway line, that'll be very obvious, and pilots will often navigate using railway lines. This could be one here, or is that a road? And obviously the next thing is going to be big roads. VFR charts will sometimes guide you towards certain visual reporting points, they're called, which could be things like motorway intersections and other very visible obstacles from the air. Something else we need to do is we're in a single engine piston aircraft, so we need to make sure we've got somewhere we can glide to if we have an engine problem. You can see we've got fields all around us, so we have lots of options here where we can safely land in one of these fields if we have an engine problem. But if we were to fly over a very built up area, that may not be the case. It's definitely something that's our responsibility to maintain. Right, I'm going to head north now. And as I said, we would now speak to Odium about transiting their air traffic zone, their military air traffic zone. We're going to go north and then into Blackbushe to completely avoid the Farnborough control area. These other lines you can see here, if you have certain maps, you'll be able to see that this is a Farnborough control area above us. The good thing about the Garmin GPS system, this one is not complete a simulation, but it has a lot of the features, and you can see the same thing visually shown on here. However, primarily you're not navigating using this, we are visually navigating. Okay, time to head over to Blackbushe. So I'm going to put direct, and then if I press the cursor, I can now, hopefully, I get this right, select a waypoint of Blackbushe, Echo Golf Lima Kilo. Now, important in VFR, we are responsible for looking out, so I do actually have some traffic on today, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we are keeping an eye outside and doing a scan round, so you don't want to get bogged down in this for too long. But Echo Golf Lima Kilo, and then we are going to make our right turn over. Now Blackbushe is an interesting airport. It is certified for night operations as well, which is unusual for a VFR sort of airport. There it is, so enter, activate, there it goes, and you can see we are now on that course bar. DTK up here is 092, so let's turn this course bar to 092, and I don't think the airplane's going to go around because we're in heading, so I'm going to bring the heading bug round, and away we go. Oh, not that much. There we go, and we're going to head over to Blackbushe. I've also got my NDB pointing at it. Now you'll see this error as we turn. You'll get different readings and so on. So it's not very reliable until we're around the turn for most of these things in these small aeroplanes. Keeping it at 100 knots just to give myself time. You can see that I don't want to be operating behind the aeroplane too much. Right, our circuit altitude we said was going to be about 1150 feet, which is only 800 feet above the airport. So it's time to begin our descent. So I'm going to turn off altitude hold, like that. Again, not a feature in the real aeroplane. And we'll just bring the power back, let it come down at 100 knots. Not too much. Gentle rate of descent. We've got plenty of time before we get over there. As you can see, let's bring the heading bug round a bit more. 030. Oh, in fact, you can see OBS. I'm not entirely familiar with how to use this. Maybe it doesn't turn as we turn. No, it looks like this is just a backing card. So I need to adjust this if I want it to match up. So we are going to be on 090. Suppose you can just point at that needle, really is the way to do this without too much issue. But there we go, 090. Right, so we are flying towards the Blackbushe NDB. We are going to descend down now to altitude, maybe a bit early to descend. We'll level off at about, let's do 1800 feet for a bit. And what do they wear? Altitude hold, a nice feature they've added there. So Blackbushe Airport, as I said, yeah, we got our NDB. We're going to join the circuit. We're effectively, assuming they are on runway, let me check the wind at the moment. We're using a weather preset. Wind on the ground is 150. So the runways at Blackbushe mean that I would imagine they are on 24. But yeah, they could be either way. It's very light winds on the ground either way. So we'll join for a downwind circuit on runway 24 at Blackbushe. Here it is, 24. This is the big auction area. We'll see it as we get closer. I'm excited to show you guys the scenery. I haven't seen it yet. properly. So there we go, 24, and then the circuit, left-hand circuits to the south if you were doing a 06 right-hand circuits. By the way, I don't know all this information, I'm just getting it from the guide that was provided with this scenery, which is quite nice to have a little manual. As I said, learning all these procedures is an important part of VFR flying in the UK. It's all very local procedures. You can even see this is the air traffic zone for Blackbushe, so we would contact them before we get there. But it's interesting to note how oddly shaped it is. It is designed to run along this, which is a motorway. This is the M3 motorway. So we need to stay north of the motorway. If we go south, we're into Farnborough's control zone. We'll be in a lot of trouble very quickly. Let's keep tracking towards that NDB. Now, soon enough, we'll start to get a picture of Blackbushe. There it is. We can see it on the nose. You can also notice that propeller effect is working really nicely now, which was previously a little bit stroby, shall we say. So let's bring that heading right. We know the wind is from the south. And let's get ourselves down to our circuit height. I'm going to set up my course bar just to remind me where the runway is. I think it helps, in my opinion anyway. So I'm going to set this to 240. There we go. So as we get nearer to the airport, we need to consider how we're going to join the circuit. Now, we are currently above the circuit. We said the circuit is at 1150 feet. So what I'm going to do is take out the autopilots, because it's important that I do this carefully. I'm going to descend down a little bit to be a bit above the circuit, and then we're going to join it from the dead side, from the north, by flying over the numbers and turning ourselves downwind. So let's descend now. Let's bring the RPM up, mixture up, fuel pump can come back on, landing light on so everyone can see us. Let's get the speed, keep it back at 100 knots, and we are coming together. Good stuff. So I'm going to fly, join the circuit. We are dead side, as I said, the circuit is on the other side. So I want to be above the circuit, and then I'm going to join it at circuit altitude as we come in over the numbers. So we're going to go over the numbers here, descending to our 1100 feet. So we're 1100 feet and we'll turn downwind. Over there is a motorway a bit further away, so if we reach the motorway we've gone too far. Let's go and give it a go. So 500 feet to go. This is good fun for me. I really enjoy doing this. Let's turn ourselves now into that circuit, keeping the speed back. If you're flying around at 120 knots at this point or even faster, you're going to make your life difficult. I'm going to keep it at 100 knots. Here we go. Oh, don't want to do that or the gear will come down if we slow down and have the power back. So there's our 1100 feet. Add the power, change the attitude and the trim. VFR flying, it's power, attitude, trim for most changes. So for a level off or a start of a climb, you change the power, then the attitude, then the trim. Right, here we are entering the circuit now. Let's head downwind. You can start to see the tower. And if you look behind that wing, you'll see the big car park that I was talking about earlier. So we know we have arrived at Blackbushe. There's 1100 feet. We're now in the circuit. So as we head up this way, I add the power back to 90 knots. That seems reasonable. What I don't want to do is go too far south and make my circuit too wide, otherwise we reach the Farnborough control zone. It is just past the motorway in front of us. So let's turn downwind now, give ourselves a bit of room, keeping our 1100 feet. This is an absolute joy. All those fingerprints on the window, I can't get over the VFR experience that Microsoft Flight Simulator offers us. So we've now joined the circuit downwind. I'm going to lower the gear at this point just to make sure I have it out, because it would be really embarrassing to not have that. And I can see my course bar shows that I'm turning downwind now, but we remember the wind is from the right, so I'm going to actually turn a bit like that just to keep me tracking along. Now when you're a local pilot, you'll know all of the visual cues and so on to maintain for the circuit. So the gear's down now. I'm going to need a bit of extra power to keep my 1100 feet, so let's get that power on. If you're at this point and you haven't increased your RPM, you'll find yourself run out of power. It's quite important to have that RPM available to you. Okay, I'm going to put out the first stage of flap, checking I'm in the white arc before I do so. There we go. That'll balloon us up, so maintaining 1100. Keep flying downwind a bit, and we'll start to bring ourselves in for the circuit. I don't want to head over these congested areas over here too much. Now I'm very much just flying it visually. Get that speed back, we'll go for the second stage of flap. I want to be about 70 knots on final is my plan for this one. Lots of villages around. Local airports like this will have noise sensitive areas that you'll spend a lot of time avoiding over flying. Again, the locals will be very familiar. I don't know how familiar I would be. Let's keep trimming back. We'll get our last stage of flap out, so full flap comes down. There it is. So the gear's down, the mixture's rich, the propeller's up, we've got full flap, and we are at our approach speed 70 knots. Not quite in trim though, keeping that trim coming. Something I would like for my flight sim setup would be a trim wheel. Maybe one day I will get a honeycomb yoke if I keep doing this sort of thing. And we're rolling out onto final now. Big wide runway, so we want to be careful not to flare early or we'll end up floating along the runway high. Now we're in trim, we want to keep it in trim at 70 knots, and then I'm going to change the power, not the pitch, to stay on profile. So I'm a bit high, so take the power back, not that much. You don't want to be using the pitch as much, you trim it out for the right speed, and then you adjust the power if you're high or low. Now it says 4 whites, I'm not entirely convinced about that. I think this is a pretty good profile, so keeping it at 70 knots, then coming down over those trees, could produce a few mechanical wind effects. And here we go then into the flare. Big wide runway, keeping that nose up now, touchdown. There we go. And we are here. As I said, big car block on the right. We're going to taxi back over to the apron on our left there. Okay, as we taxi over this line, that'll be us off the active runway as we head over to the sort of clubhouse parking area. Let's bring those flaps all the way up. Don't need those anymore. Just going to bring it left here as we head down there. Let's open up the window, get a bit of fresh air in. Although, of course, you do have the air vents on these aeroplanes, so you would actually be getting relatively fresh air. And we can turn off the fuel pump. Turn off the anti-collision flashing lights, turn off the pitot heat, and let's taxi over to the apron. A successful flight all round. I'd be feeling very happy. This is a pretty fast taxi actually. So let's park up and explore the airport. So we've vacated the runway now. I've brought the flaps up to 0, turned off the fuel pump and the pitot heat. We don't need those, and now we can taxi in. This scenery's got all the little details, so all aircraft taxi following one-way system. There's a big clear arrow for us over here. There's a nice little viewing area over here, but we don't get to taxi past that on the way in, sadly. So we'll head the right way round. There's a nice convenient windsock. No ILS here, so in the low visibility days it doesn't have that facility, but it does obviously have nice lighting, so you can use it at night, as we said earlier, which we'll take a look at in just a second. In fact, if I bring it down to nighttime now, and you'll be able to see that our landing light giving us quite a good spread forward, certainly more than it used to now in the PA28. There we go. Little fire or control center, that big yellow C, that's where you have to go and pay your fees and so on. This is a prior permission required airport, so you have to have told them that you're coming. You can't just decide to fly in here as you're flying past. Pretty common of little airfields in the UK, I must be honest. So yeah, it's a bit more of an organised system than just jumping in and getting underway, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I don't think you'd be flying here just randomly. A bit of planning and thought would have to go into it, especially given the route you saw us follow and the airspaces we had to navigate on our way in. Taxi past all of our ground crew. I have the ground crew settings turned up pretty high actually in this. It keeps my frame rates under control so that the sim doesn't get too juddery on the recording that you guys are watching. Right, let's park ourselves in between these big jets. Why not? And they feel big to us now. Of course, we know they're just CJ4s, or not just, but they are CJ4s. So yeah, they are pretty small, but everything feels big when you're in one of these. And let's bring it to a stop. Squeeze on that parking brake. If I get it right. There we go. If that is set, shouldn't be sitting at idle like that. We would actually have it running at its sort of 1400 RPM. And it's time for us to turn it off. So we're going to bring the throttle to idle. Make sure to cut off all the way. There we go. And it turns off. Now we can turn off the magnetos. Not using those anymore. Then we're going to switch off the nav lights. Oh, they were off now. That's my mistake. Let me turn off the alternator, turn off the battery. Oh, we're going to continue this. And we're going to turn the fuel selector off. And here we are. Welcome to Blackbushe. Let us open up the door and we'll go and have a bit of an explore. Here we are parked up now, and we are going to go for a wander over Blackbushe Airport and take a look at some of the features. We've already seen that one-way system as we came in, which was really nicely done. You can see the fire station here, keep clear area in front, obviously, so these vehicles can depart, and you can see Blackbushe Airport written up here. Now, I've never been to the real Blackbushe Airport. The team who developed this did go, so they have got some experience of what you are expected to see. We've got the windsock in the right place. You can actually see on the ground where it's obviously been taken a photo of by Bing mapping. And here's a little refuel station. If you want, you can drive over here and get your fuel topped up with a little attendant in place. The first officer, Kat, has joined us already. I'm not sure if she's going to say anything today. Right. Yes, she is going to say something. There we go. Here's the control tower. Where you'll get your air traffic information service, and that's open pretty late in Blackbushe, so open until 11 o'clock at night. As we said, quite a rare airport for having VFR nighttime operations available to you, so quite nice, quite flexible. But there we go, all in the right place. I believe it's the right colour, and you can even see Blackbushe Airport and its logo printed on the side of the building here. This isn't a review, by the way. I'm just taking a look at it. JustFlight were kind enough to send it over, so I wanted to take a good look. I haven't seen this before. It looks like we actually got a business person waiting to go somewhere. Fantastic. Great to have these details in. So, oh, there's some logos of some companies working here as well. Fantastic. Little road sign. What does this say? Rendezvous points. And look at that. Even a little history poster about the airlines of Blackbushe Airport. So they've had some, obviously some commercial aircraft in here over the years. You can see where different runways were laid out in the past. A lot of World War II airports had lots of cross runways in case of sort of strong crosswinds, things like that, and some more cabins and offices. Really quite impressive how much detail has been loaded. Really gives that ambience of a general aviation field. I've got the general aviation traffic on in the game, which is quite convenient, as we see some of the part using the different end, the 06 circuit, as opposed to the 24 that we just came in and did. But off they go. Nothing like that feeling of sitting in a general aviation airport and having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea whilst the aircraft zoom by, which you can do over here. There's a little aviators visitors centre. We've got another businessman waiting for something over here. Perhaps they are going off flying for a business meeting. We've got the cafe. This is quite good fun. I do quite like these sort of detailed little dioramas. I sort of think of them as that you can be put into Flight Simulator. That's why I like having the ground handling vehicles for my airliners. It just makes me feel like I'm sort of, it's like a bit of a model railway sort of effect, I suppose. So yeah, the benches are here. You can sit and watch as we did ourselves taxi in. Now, as we zoom on up, you're going to see the taxiway is all in the right place. It is lighting sorted out. Not sure what was going on with the Pappies on the way in on 2-4 there. So I'll be curious to find out if any of you have any more information on that. Quite a busy circuit today. Let's head over to those car parks. So this car park you're seeing now is the British Car Auctions, I believe. So this is a huge parking lot. They used to own the airfield. And there's obviously auctions for all sorts of cars. And then you've got the auction house buildings up here. So that's all been built in nicely. A ridiculous number of cars. So my understanding is these are up for auction. That's why they're here. As obviously well as visitors coming to bid on them. And that is the amazing part of Flight Simulator these days, is the ability to load in all these objects without seeing too much of a performance hit. So yeah, 3D cars all placed around to give you that real effect. As I said, there's British Car Auctions. There is the name of the warehouse. So it gives you that effect of feeling like you're coming in to approach at Manchester or another international airport, and actually they're all just not there for the airport, but just for the auctions. So yeah, as you can see, quite a complete little airfield, quite a nice one to add to your roster. A big runway, capable for us to come in, and you could fit quite some reasonable sized planes in here, I imagine. But yeah, hopefully that's been of interest to you guys. I may do a review on this in the future if you guys would like to see that, and we'll get some more general aviation flying in. As I was talking of dioramas, here's Blackbushe Airport at night. You can see the nice lighting on the car park. They've even lit up the auction house. It looks like it's lit up from the inside as well, which is quite impressive. And then if you head over, we've got all the runway. Again, not sure why these pappies are showing us 4 whites. I could have missed something there. Taxiways all lit up though. So back over at the clubhouse now, you can see taxiways have got the lights, including for the fuel area. And we've got the car park all lit up nicely, along with the terminal. Or I say terminal, the little tower building, which even has lights on the inside. Again, that diorama feel really, really works well for me. It gives a bit of charm to these things when you can have that sort of effect. Fantastic. There it is. Very nice. The website says that this is compatible with Microsoft Flight Simulator's dynamic weather system. Let's stick in a bit of snow. And there we go. All the cars covered in snow. Rooftops of the buildings. Really nice. Wonder if the benches have snow on them as well. Yes, they do. Look at that. Look at that. The level of detail we're reaching now with these things is fantastic. Even the handrails on the fence are all snowed out. Taxiway's looking nice. Bit of use, not quite as snowed over as the grass, which is typically how it goes, of course. You can even see that centre line just about where the paint's taken the snow, which is obviously what it would do. The colder paint doesn't take up in as much heat from the daylight as the tarmac might have. And there's our... Oh, we didn't get any snow on our aeroplane. No, luckily, we are still available to go flying straight away if we need to. So that is all for today's video. I hope it's been useful for you. Just something slightly different to use a bit of general aviation and explore a new airport. So this is the, as I said, JustFlight Arrow that I've been using, and the JustFlight Blackbushe recently released that they kindly sent over just to take a look at. And it's been good fun to get back in the air and do a bit of general aviation. There'll be more Airbus videos to come, as well as live streams and tutorials on the channel. So do please subscribe if you'd like to see more of those. Otherwise, we'll see you again in another video or live stream very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.